Hi everyone, Miss Lorette here again. This is section 1.3, lesson 3. Today we're going to be talking about dividing fractions. You'll need a notebook, something to write with, and possibly a scientific calculator. So before we can talk about dividing fractions, we need to review a key term that hopefully at some point you've learned, and that is the word reciprocal. So take a moment to copy all of the information that you see on this slide. It's important to understand that reciprocal does not mean opposite. A lot of my students in the past have thought that reciprocal and opposite mean the same thing. In mathematics, they are two different things. Opposite means you're changing the sign. So if it's positive, you're making it negative. If it's negative, you're making it positive. A reciprocal means that you are finding the multiplicative inverse of the number. That's a fancy way of saying that you're essentially turning the number upside down. You're flipping the position of the values. So you're not changing the sign, you're just changing the position of the numbers. So hopefully you've copied this table down. Let's actually look at each of these numbers and find their reciprocal. Well, if I'm flipping these two numbers upside down for 4/7, that's going to turn into 7/4. And again, I don't change the sign. The reciprocal would have the same sign. For number 2, if I'm looking at -5, it doesn't look like a fraction, so I highly encourage you to make it look like a fraction so that way you can flip it upside down. Now I can clearly see what the top and bottom numbers are, and I can flip it appropriately. It should turn into -1/5. So again, it was negative to start, it's negative for the reciprocal as well. And then the third example, number 3, I have 1 divided by 3. If I flip those numbers around, I'm going to have 3 divided by 1, or you could just write this as 3. Again, any number over 1 is just that integer value. Okay, so now let's talk about dividing fractions. Again, if you're using a calculator, your calculator should be doing this part for you, but I'm going to show you how to do it without. Now, before you divide fractions, you actually want to rewrite it as a multiplication problem. You're going to multiply the first fraction by the reciprocal of the second. Some of your teachers in the past, if you've learned this before, might have referred to this as keep, change, or keep, change, flip. Essentially, what you're going to do is you're going to keep the first fraction the same, change that division to multiplication, and flip the second fraction upside down. Now I'm going to use strategies that I've learned in the previous lesson to look for places to cross cancel or cross reduce. 5 can't reduce with 3 or 1. 6 can't reduce with 1, but it can reduce with 3. I can reduce 3 and 1 both, or excuse me, 3 and 6 both by 3. The 3 turns into a 1, the 6 turns into a 2, and now I can multiply. 5 times 2 gives me 10, 1 times 1 gives me 1, or if you're doing this in a calculator, it should just give you an integer answer of 10. Number 2, I have a mixed number here, so I actually want to, again, use strategies from the last lesson and convert it to an improper. I'm going to multiply this denominator by the integer and get 16. I am going to add the 16 to the 5 and get 21. My denominator stays the same, the sign stays the same, and I change the division to a multiplication, and I flip the second fraction upside down to give me a negative, not -1/2, but -2/1. And now I look for things to cross cancel or cross reduce. 21 can't reduce with 8 or 1. 2 can't reduce with 1, but it can reduce with 8. I can divide both of these numbers by 2. 2 turns into a 1, and 8 turns into a 4. Negative times negative gives me a positive. 21 times 1 gives me 21. And 4 times 1 gives me 4. I'll write it down here so you can clearly see it. 21/4. Again, your calculator will probably give you a mixed number, and that's totally okay. Okay, let's take a look at number 3. We have an integer here. You want to make sure that the integer looks like a fraction first, so that way you handle the reciprocal appropriately. I keep that first fraction the same. I change division to multiply. I flip the second fraction upside down to get the reciprocal. 10 can't reduce with 7, but it can reduce with 2. I can divide both 10 and 2 by 2. 10 divided by 2 gives me 5. 2 divided by 2 gives me 1. And then 1 at the top here can't reduce with 7 or 1. So I'm just going to multiply across. Negative 5 times 1 gives me a negative 5. 7 times 1 gives me 7. And notice I should have a negative product here anyways, because a negative times a positive gives us a negative. And this doesn't reduce any further because I've already reduced ahead of time. Number 4, we've got a mixed number and an integer. So we've got to make a few more adjustments here. The integer turns into a fraction by putting it over 1. I'm going to multiply the 4 and the 2 to give me 8. 9, 10, 11 is what I get when I add the 3. And now I'm going to do keep, change, flip. I'm going to keep the first fraction the same. I'm going to change the division to multiplication. And I'm going to flip that second fraction upside down and look for things to cross reduce or cross cancel. 2 can't reduce with 1 or 11. 4 can't reduce with 1 or 11, so I'm good to just multiply across the tops and get 8, across the bottom and get 11, and there's my final answer. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video here, copy all of these examples in your notebook, give them a try. I'm going to pause my video as well, and then when we both unpause, you should see solutions on the board. Okay, so here are the answers that I'm getting for these. So for the first one, you're going to keep the first fraction the same, change the division to multiply, flip the second fraction, nothing cross-canceled or reduced. I got negative 7 over 54. For number 2, I converted that mixed number to an improper first and got 43 over 6. Then I did keep, change, flip. The 6's ended up cross-canceling with each other, and I got 1 over 43. For number 3, I made the integer a fraction by putting it over 1. Then I did keep, change, flip. Nothing cross-canceled or cross-reduced here, so I just multiplied across the tops and bottoms. The 2 negatives should cancel to give me a positive, and again, your calculator might be giving you a mixed number here, which is okay. Number 4, I made the integer a fraction by putting it over 1. I changed the mixed number to an improper. I got negative 25 over 7. Then from that point forward, I did keep, change, flip. Nothing cross-canceled or reduced here, so I just multiplied across the top and the bottom. Positive times negative should give you a negative. And that is pretty much it for today's lesson. So as you can see, dividing fractions is not much different from multiplying fractions. So I encourage you to go back and rewatch this video if you need any clarification or ask your teacher. And good luck with everything. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.